Hey, welcome to Basics of Digital Painting. Um, the way this works is that every week I give out an assignment, and then the next week people they turn the assignment in on the Discord, and I pull a bunch of them, and then we talk about it. Oh, I thought it was a wave. Hey, and then yeah, if anybody, I'm going to be reviewing a bunch of these and giving some feedback, and then at the end of the class, I'm going to be giving next week's assignment. Hey, Ebarth. And if your piece comes up on screen, you're welcome to raise your hand and come up on stage. We can chit chat over voice about the critique, or if you want to do it over text, that's fine too. So this week, I was just saying before I started recording, I have discovered an innovative new technique for boiling the human brain. This was a challenge where I was asking people to take the lighting from one piece, from one photo, and then apply it to the structure of another. So you needed to take this to make a study out of this portrait here using the lighting from this portrait. And this forces you to do a couple of really hard things. Number one is that you have to like balance looking at two references at the same time, which is just kind of like structurally hard. But because the lighting directions are different, you need to like fully break this down in your mind away from like patterns of light and dark and think about it as a fully 3D object while simulating the appearance of light over it inside your imagination. So your work that's happening is all mental. It's all happening inside your head as you try to imagine what this would look like with different lighting on it, which is an excellent way of strengthening that part of your brain, I think. This is the basics of digital painting and not, super expert challenge mode digital painting. I feel like maybe I'm going to reserve this for people who want to really like go deep on this kind of stuff. And so it was really educational for me as a teacher to see how hard this was. I hadn't done this assignment. I was just coming up with this assignment off the top of my head because I knew it would stretch out a certain type of thinking, but I didn't realize how incredibly difficult it was going to be when I assigned it. So there's going to be a lot of this week where I'm just kind of commiserating with you guys, being like, hey, thank you so much for giving a real shot at this. It shows a tremendous amount of effort on your part, and I really appreciate you taking this free class so seriously. So with that, let's get into it. Abarth, how's your week? How did the assignment go for you?
I was feeling good at the beginning of the assignment when I was doing the drawing and I was starting in on the values.
I put
But then,
I put all of your different layers here on layers so we can take a look at all of it step by step.
yeah, you'd given me feedback on a previous one to put more information in the drawing, so I tried doing that. But I really got into trouble, I think, after I added the color and I still had the lines in there.
Uh huh.
And then it was just took an enormous amount of time to go through each section and remove the lines
Aha.
because I
I
yeah because I
I have a different take though, and that was one of the reasons I want to bring you up here is because I think this is actually a really good example of something that's like more holistic bit of feedback I want to give to everybody. Um, which is that it's sometimes really difficult to figure out where a piece goes off the rails. And while I know that like the difficulty you were experiencing was at this step here of like painting out the lines, I don't think that's where the trouble started. Um, I think the trouble started here actually.
okay what happened here?
Well, what happened here is that I think like how do you see this step? I want to like not just impose too much of my own thinking here. What's your impression of how things were going at this step?
So I sort of felt like I'd done the like low poly thing we talked about in a previous class to like break down the drawing.
Hmm.
And then I tried to put a value for each polygon, but I had a lot of trouble. So you described thinking about like the normal off the polygon
Yeah.
and then like looking that up in the sphere.
Hmm.
But I wasn't able to do that. I didn't know how to do that.
Okay.
And so I tried to sort of guess more of like what it seemed like it should be like.
Yeah.
And I ended up with a version that was way too much contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a pass to try to lower the contrast between the light side and the shadow side.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. The fact that you're so aware about your thinking throughout this process is really cool. And that kind of like in-depth self-analysis is really valuable to learning this stuff. And like you were identifying that the values on your first pass hadn't quite come together. And I think at this point, your values are still developing. They're not there all the way. And when you do this kind of incremental process, like you were saying, from lines to value to color to details, the way that I do it, one of the real downsides to this is that if at any point you don't reach a kind of satisfaction with that step, that you cannot effectively progress to the next step. So I think what happened here is that your values are developing, but they haven't reached the point where the structure of the face is reading clearly at a distance. And it's not because the lines are there, but because like the values of all the different facets of the face aren't fully there yet. And when you haven't figured out where all the values are, moving on to color will get you stuck. And the feeling will be is that you're like, okay, well, the values are still developing, but this is good as it's going to get. I'm going to move on to color. And then you add some color and you then go to step forwards from there. And you're like, wait, what's going on? There's like a force field preventing me from going forwards now all of a sudden. Like I feel very stuck. That feeling of stuckness is not happening in the moment you're in. That stuckness is just catching up with you from the previous step. And this is something that happens a lot. It's happened to me a million times. And it took me a really long time to realize that I wasn't reaching a point of like difficulty because I was struggling with the thing that I was currently doing, but I had put myself in a difficult position. And now I was like working at a deficit. And so moving on from like the values when you aren't feeling like totally satisfied, totally confident in what comes afterwards is going to result in you temporarily feeling like things are okay, they're developing, and then difficulty will strike. And because the two moments are not like really connected temporally, like there's not a really clear before and after that gets you there, it feels really unclear as to like why you're having that problem. And I've watched this happen to people in a number of different ways where they are attempting to finish a painting and they're like, the question always comes up, why am I having a hard time with the details? How do I finish this? And the answer is always, you back up 2 steps, you work a little more on the place before you got stuck, and then you restart the work again. And you will no longer be stuck when you reach that later step. And the fact that you have this happen in a study is really valuable because this is study time and it's the perfect time to have difficulties and not like in the middle of working on a commission for a client. When you have that happen and there's like money on the line, it really sucks. So I wanted to bring that up because I can see it happening in this piece, and I thought hopefully it'd be a really good illustration for other people who have had this experience. And so I really appreciate you sharing the step-by-step and sharing your thoughts throughout this, because I think you've done a really great job of pulling out of a dive on this. And like you've put a lot of work in on this final step here that I think I'm actually surprised at how much more your values developed once you got to the point where it should have been just like painting out the lines and working on details and stuff. So I can really see like the amount of effort and hours that you're putting in on trying to pull this thing to a close. Does the feedback I'm giving make sense?
Oh yeah, that makes total sense. I think when I was looking at the value stage, I was still seeing the lines, and I was getting sort of the structure of what I was looking at from there instead of from the values. And so I think what you're saying is I should spend more time on let the values develop further so that the whole piece sort of makes sense just with the values before going on to the next step.
Yeah, and like you're working over the top of the values here. Your values are working over the top of the lines here. I would say develop the values to the point where you aren't really seeing the lines anymore. But definitely don't try to take it to like a really tight final. Don't work on edges. Don't work on details. Just work on the overall structure, the look of it when you're looking at a smaller window or when you're squinting. And if you can get that feeling right from this point, from when it's loose and blurry, it's going to work out better when you go to add the colors. The colors will seem like they just kind of stick to the piece better. Like there's like almost like a grit there, and the colors just seem to like, oh, they're just kind of sticking to the canvas. This feels good. Everything feels kind of natural with it. And then, at that point, you just have a kind of blurry, maybe a little bit messy image that you can then go and add details and rendering and clean up things like edges and painting over little artifacts and things like that. And the detail stage, if you do all the preparatory work for it, is like, it's kind of just procedural. It's just like, you're just like a janitor sweeping up after all the mess. Ideally. Oftentimes there's larger corrections that need to be made too, but that's ideally how it works when you work this way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Pete. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Thanks for coming on stage and chit-chatting. All right. Up next, I have Soprit. First high-effort portrait attempt in almost 4 years. That's a comment that gets you up on stage. Hey, Soprit, how's it going?
Oh, hello.
Hi there.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the thing. Can anybody else hear them? I am seeing the icon blink, but I'm not hearing anything. Very quiet.
I'm quiet. Yeah.
I'm turning up to 200%, but I'm not sure I'm going to get it much. Can you check your mic settings?
I think it's
there
as
we go.
loud as it's going to get.
Much better. Hi there. How's it going?
Sorry. I'm good. Thank you.
You tried this out on the hardest challenge I've ever given for this class. What was your experience like overall?
Well, I expected it to be kind of. I expected to suffer a lot more, but I think it ended up kind of more okay. I think I was lost with the face details, but I liked it.
That's good. I really like to see your progression here. The colors that you established really early on are really gorgeous. There's a really incredible warmth to it. And seeing you establish that so early on here, like just in the blurry version, seeing those those warm colors contrasting with this slightly cooler plane along the shoulder and the side of the face early on, and getting the overall vibe of the thing established so early seems like it really worked out quite well for you. Where do you feel like you had the most difficulty with it?
Definitely the whole face, because I have basically no experience painting faces, and this was me kind of bashing my head against the wall for about many hours.
I think you did quite well considering your opinion of yourself for drawing faces. I think it reads very legibly. The likeness may not be perfect, but I think you've demonstrated the general structure of the face quite well. And I think the painting still, I really like the stylization of the brushstrokes that you're doing. And I think that overall it doesn't read as demented or inhuman. It's it's a portrait of a girl. And so I think it's still quite effective, even if you're not 100% satisfied with it.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything specific you want to criticize?
Sure. I would say that one of the strengths that you're showing here is your willingness to let some of these edges get really soft. Like you're showing the way that the light is kind of blooming, even in the shadows. The light is kind of getting vague and the edges are getting soft. You have these edges that are like getting a little harder in some parts and a little softer in others. But we're not seeing that in the areas where you're struggling. So the areas where you're comfortable, you're allowing yourself to get very loose. But then when we start looking at like the eyes and the lips, I think these are good demonstrations of them. We are seeing that very hard edge all the way around here and inside the eye here. And it's really working against you. I think that you naturally have a good way of seeing like what these shapes are like when they're softened, when they're not quite so literal in how hard they are. And I think that allowing yourself to remain looser in parts, like will end up giving you a stronger look of the piece overall, especially if you find like along the lip area here, if you want to pick out some areas that still have a fairly hard edge while softening others and letting that edge modulate, just like go back and forth between areas where it's hard and where it's soft, is going to give the audience a clear picture of where your intention is as an artist. Like, where are you seeing these edges? Where do you feel like they're less important? Allowing yourself to just retain a little bit of that blurriness in spots to demonstrate like your own creative vision for the study is going to go a long way. And also, it's just going to relax things. You don't want to do loose and blurry everywhere. You don't want to do tight and linear everywhere. And making calculated choices about that, there's no absolute right or wrong answer to it. So it's a very flexible thing to do. And I think that you could be doing more of it. If you can, I think like, you are doing more of it early on. And then as you're going through it, you're looking to find those tighter and tighter details. It's really, if you're finding yourself feeling frustrated, it's often not the tight details that hold the answer. It's usually the broad strokes. It's usually these like bigger, bolder shapes that you're seeing from far away to make sure that you have like the exact face shape and that like where the biggest changes in the planes of the face are happening, that those are all proportioned correctly. It almost looks from when we see this in a very, very tiny thumbnail view, like all of the jaw is kind of migrating this way a little bit, if I wanted to exaggerate it. And trying to get a sense of what that's going to look like from a distance and reposition it so that it feels more natural, more correct, even if it doesn't look right up close, so that you can get a clearer sense on what you might need to change as you go back in on the details. Getting it looking good from far away first, and then zooming in without allowing yourself to tighten everything. It's a delicate balance, but I'm sure that you would be able to get it with practice, because I can see a lot of painting confidence and a lot of strong fundamentals in your work.
Okay, thank you so much.
My pleasure. All right, next up we got Paper. Familiar face around here. Hey, Paper.
There we go. How's it going?
Hey, I was looking through all the submissions this week, and I was just like, I don't know how to pull on stage because everyone was having a hard time with this, and I don't have any good answers on like how to make this assignment in specific work out better. Because I like, here's the full and honest truth. I've done this, but like the way it works is like I'll have a sketch, right? And I'll like be looking up reference for the face, and I'll be pulling a bunch of different facial reference in, and some of them have lighting from the right direction, while other ones just like they've got a likeness that I'm trying to get, and so I have this composite of all these different references up. But I haven't specifically ever tried to just copy lighting from one piece onto another strictly. Mm-hmm. It's usually starts with a drawing that I'm familiar with. It's like in my hand. And it also usually involves multiple references that allow me to kind of pick and choose and make it more of a creative melange than like specifically trying to do this thing. So,
yeah.
I mean, you've been doing these assignments so far. Would you say it's the hardest one?
Yeah, I would say. Like, the first like hour or so, I mean, I struggled a lot with the likeness for the better part of like the first hour and a half. It was only like the last like 20 minutes where it started to come together. Like for that first like bit, it straight up looked like a minion from Despicable Me. I'm not kidding you. I was like, this is rough. Yeah. And then I think it was just like copying like likeness of a person with all these other features like the lighting and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it and I kind of see I put the light like a little bit higher than in the reference, but I was like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. It's close enough. But yeah, I mean, this is very challenging, which I appreciate. It kept things interesting. So
good.
I like challenging.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of, Dark Souls fans here in the audience who are just like always love to get their butt kicked a little bit by something that's maybe a level or two above them. So I'm not going to do this every time. I'm glad this was a shot. So I would say that looking at the reference, the lighting reference here, one of the things to keep in mind that might have made things a little easier is like we've got like kind of two different ways that the lighting is working out. If we look at this hand, it goes like really, really rich and warm. And so we have these like really saturated shadows through like the wrist and the side of the palm here. And you're doing that kind of all over the face and then on the neck and stuff. But then above it, we end up with the center of the spotlight. Because what's going on here is we've got a light that's not like really even all the way across her. It's like a little bit of a, let me just get the layers in the right order here. It's a little bit of a spotlight. Like it's shaped like, the light is actually, it's a soft edged light, but it's not like a bunch of parallel rays. Like we're just seeing like this little spray of light that's like a circle, right?
Yeah.
And so you can see how it falls off a little bit up here. And then we're also seeing some fall off as we get further down. And the brightest part, and then the counter light over here, the warm, the cool one, is also a little bit smaller. And it's getting occluded by some stuff. So if you look at the shoulder here, it goes from like this brighter, already cooler highlight. And then it doesn't ever get dark. It just goes from like warm to cool. And just like orange to gray. And so, when you have all of the values already like going very, very dark along the side of the face, you're not really getting that opportunity to really just show it go from like use some of these lighter colors. And like, I see this gray, this like greenish color you kind of have in the eyes. It's not actually green.
But gray.
It's actually just like a middle orange. It's not even really that gray. Just taking that and just being a little bolder with like, let's just fill the shadow area in with this. And you can see that across the face in this reference as well. In the areas where none of the light gets in, where in like the deepest crevices of the face, like, hidden on the inner folds of the eye and like inside of the creases of the mouth, we're getting much darker colors. But across these broader, more open areas, it's safe to go ahead and just like use more gray and just go straight from just like instead of rendering down to like from a light color to a dark color, just go from a saturated color to a desaturated one.
Okay, I'll try that more. One thing I do notice
Mhm.
is like I use Procreate and I'm looking at it on my iPad and on the computer for some reason it
Aha.
like blasted the saturation. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons I don't like painting on the iPad. Actually,
Yeah.
uh,
And
the iPad tends to go a little crazy with the saturation,
yes. And
or
I
it like
you
deads
know,
it down. The iPad panels are really bright, so
yeah.
I found that when I was looking at pieces I'd painted on the iPad on a computer, they would look extra saturated and they would also look dark.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a little
So
frustrating.
sometimes I have like I think I used to have kind of the opposite problem where it would look less saturated on the computer, but there's like Procreate has two different like coloring modes, like a P3 and then like an RGB.
Mm-hmm.
And the P3 is like the special iPad blasted saturated, and then the RGB is closer to what the computer uses, I think. So
That sounds
I
right.
switched I switched mine to the RGBs. So I don't know why this one's so blasted, but you
Yeah.
know, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes when I work on two monitors, I will have them
Hmm.
up on both monitors. There's a way that you can even like mirror onto a nearby computer while you're painting on the
Oh,
iPad to be able to just get a sanity check on colors and contrast and stuff. That might help, even if you don't, even if
hmm,
you prefer to work on the iPad. It might be good to see if you can get some live references to what's going on. Yeah, this was me just
that's a good
painting
idea.
painting the orb a little bit here, and you could see it's like it's possible to get a sense of three dimensionality without ever using a lot of value transition. You can
Hmm.
really there's some really cool illustrations that I've seen where the instead of having going to black on shadows,
Hmm.
they just go to like 50% gray, and like
Mm,
going
yeah.
to like a middle gray as a shadow color. I always think looks really interesting because it has this effect. I mean, 50% gray is actually kind of bright in this sort of scenario, right?
Yeah.
It looks like it's actually brighter than the highlight, but what's funny is that if you keep it kind of flat looking, it will read as a shadow.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah, I
actually
know
like pull that
exactly what you're
off.
talking about.
Yeah.
I've seen those illustrations and they look like super wicked.
Yeah. It's like kind of a
Yeah.
sick look. It pops. I think that's part of the reason why the lighting on this one pops. And
Yeah.
just see if you can try to integrate gray more as an experiment with color next time. And I think you might get some
Awesome.
nice results.
I will try that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the stage. All right. We're going to burn through them. I did not pull so many. Anathay, no, usually doesn't pop on the mic. So I just wanted to take a look at their work and say, hey, great job. There's a lot of really cool color notes in here. This is one of those things about color that I'm always calling out because I really love the way that it looks. Um, you had really no commentary. I thought you did an incredibly successful job on this, considering the difficulty of the assignment. Dark is saying successful, which means you got somebody else who knows what they're doing with painting, saying you did a great job on this. The thing that I love here is like when we look at this area here, there's like these notes of these oranges coming through. I'm just exaggerating the colors for the sake of the audience here. We got these oranges, and then there is this like perception of some, again, it's just gray, right? But it's almost like a greenish. It feels like there's this pale green that's in here. And then up here, we're getting this purpley blue, which actually is purple, but it feels a little bit more like a royal blue that's coming through up here. And you can see as I'm adding it, it's just kind of exaggerating the colors. And this is one of the interesting things that we can do with color is that when you take a color, like literally, if you take like white light and you run it through a prism, what shoots out the other end is like, the rainbow. a color can be like separated and divided and pulled apart into constituent pieces. And this happens like for real in nature when light gets refracted through a prism. But it also, we like sense it in our color perception as well, which is like, I'm just making a rainbow here. But like, you can take any color and start to pull it apart into its constituent pieces. Because like within each color are these like separate colors that are all additively mixing together. And as we pull them and tug at them and sort of separate them into different zones inside of the area, like I was just talking with Paper about how the fill light was very gray. And what you did was you took this very neutral tone, like a white light, and started to tug on it where some areas were ending up more blue and some areas were ending up more orange. And we can see how they're separated. And in between them, there's this green area, and it feels a lot like light being separated by a prism and ending up with these discrete, like kind of prismatic hues that are all kind of mixing together and giving the sense of like light transitioning from warm to cool, and the stuff that's in between is like got all these different rainbowy colors in it. And we can sense it kind of like, a sommelier senses notes inside of a wine. They're like, notes of shoe leather and the coconut oil or whatever when they're drinking a glass of wine. We can kind of sense the same thing in colors. And it's always beautiful to see, because in this way we get to see a little bit of the artist's perception, get something outside of just a replication of the art, but a little bit of a view inside of the artist's mind. Yeah, as you can tell, I am a wine expert. I did ferment this in my boot. You're right, Tristan. So yeah, I just wanted to call that out. I love to see that, and great job overall. Sean, who has instructed me on how to pronounce their name. Sean, are you here? They were the first person to finish, and on this week where everybody was like screaming about how much their brain hurt, I thought I would call out the person who got theirs done first and did a really excellent job too. Like the amount of rendering that's in this piece, for it to be the first homework piece finished and to be this rendered, means that Sean must have gotten on this the instant we were done broadcasting last Thursday. Colors look very nice. I love the warmth of the lighting. Again, this is one of those things that can sometimes be very difficult with digital art, where things can mix down into gray accidentally a little too easily. And then there is a lot of subtlety and a lot of rendering happening in the skin tone here, which is having to be made up from scratch. One of the things that I think is interesting about this assignment is because there is neither image shows you the true result, right? Like you look at this girl, all the lighting on her face is wrong. And then if you look at the other girl, the structure of it is all wrong. So you have two wrong images that you're trying to combine to create the correct outcome. So you don't have the ability to just look over at the final study and say, that's what it's supposed to look like. And that's the same problem we have when we're doing imaginative art. Part of the reason I wanted to assign this is because I feel like I have done this a lot with imaginative work, where I'm looking at my drawing, I'm looking at my reference, and I'm like, the correct answer is neither of these. The correct answer is some combination of the things that I've drawn and the reference I've looked up. And the merging, the synthesis of them, the process of synthesizing them is a difficult one, but it's the one that results in something that is like, can't be created any other way. You're not just able to take a photograph. It's not just a painterly copy of a photograph, and it's not a purely made up imaginary thing. It is imagination informed by reality in a way that is, I think, kind of cool. And I feel like I've got a sense from everybody a little bit about like what does their work look like when they're painting from imagination through this assignment. And I think Sean's rendering on this is very, very cool. I do want to call out though, because I believe there's a certain request for criticism in this class. You can see where Sean has some habits, like showing the way that the highlights kind of work up the seams here. Like Sean's got preferences for where these highlights fall. They do tend to find their way into areas like the tip of the nose and along the bridge of the nose here and like inside the tear duct. Like those places tend to accumulate these kinds of tighter highlights. But when you hit all of them, you get this kind of outlining effect that feels a little bit like a drawing on the top of your painting. Same thing is happening here with the light part, the upper plane of the eye here, and then we're getting it a little bit around the outer eyelid, and then we get this around the rim of the lips here. And it's like we get this sense of it's a kind of linearity. I think it's a little bit of a bad habit. If you're looking to get something to feel a little bit more real, you need to know where these kinds of linear, like where these little light traps happen that tend to accumulate these specular highlights and whatnot. But you also need to figure out in the reference that you're looking at in specific, where are they also going to get like naturally kind of blended and smoothed out? Like where are these edges going to tighten in and where are they going to loosen up? And you have a lot of really highly rendered, very smoothed out areas here. And so what I would recommend is I think that what you're looking for is finding a bit of edge work that falls in between the very smoothed out areas like on the side of the cheek here, and then the much more linear, tighter edges that you're seeing like on the underside of the eye. And so look for these areas where these lines are happening and find places to break them up. Let them get lost somewhere in the middle or along an edge. Find a place where they can maybe get a little lost, not all the way, but the same thing is true of, you see this plane change along the side of the nose. Obviously, it's not going to be tight like this. There is some range of edges. Some of them are going to be perfectly hard, while others are going to be blended infinitely soft. And everything in between needs to be on the table. This is a really difficult thing to master because it depends on the level of reference, how close or far away our vantage point from the figure. Because up close, we see these really, we see different tight edges than like when we zoom out. And so we need to be really mindful of every zoom level that we're looking at and look for opportunities to take some of these harder or these softer transitions and harden them up just a little bit. Like it might not be a matter of making a kind of line or a kind of corner, but a faster transition from one color to the next that makes a little bit of a slightly tighter plane change, like what you have here on the nose. And then, you might want to take something that's a much sharper transition, like this bag under the eye, and find ways that it's going to transition a little softer. And so it's that like finding all those in-between edges. They're not hard, they're not soft. There's like, maybe there's 5 of them, maybe there's 10 of them, different levels of like hardness and softness. And having a lot of control over that is going to push this rendering up to the next level. So that's some in-depth feedback. I hope you see it. I hope you enjoy it. Delia, you're up next. I know Delia's always here. Delia, hey, how's it
Yeah, I
going?
am.
You don't even need to raise your hand. You got admin privileges.
Yeah.
How was the assignment this week?
It was okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've already apologized. I've already said I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I think I was, in general, I've been feeling pretty stiff lately, so
Mm-hmm.
it kind of carried on to this one. And I did a little time lapse thing, so you could see the struggles.
I mean, I can see the struggles without looking at the time lapse.
Yeah, great, super. Yeah, so I had a hard time first identifying the light source
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't quite tell if there was one or two or even like three because it's just so soft. But I kind of went in with the colors first, and then I just did the anatomy later.
Mm-hmm.
Which might have been not the best choice to do, but that's fine. And yeah.
Yeah, I think the feedback I have for you is similar to the one I had for paper, which is like, feel free to be more bold with the grays. Like you have these gray tones, they're on the page, they're on the palette. Feel free to just let some of this area that you are inclined to want to let go dark, just let it go gray instead and see what happens.
Yeah. I think I sort of wanted to at first, and then I saw it on like my second screen. I thought, oh geez, is this way too gray? Like I couldn't tell.
The other thing is like, because the body is turned, like one of the things I think is happening in this is like, the light source is coming in from over here on the right? But her body is like fully turned. Like, look at this. Her body is turned this way, perpendicular to the light. And yet she's getting it straight on this way. So we've got, I think the light's taking a 90-degree corner to hit her in the chest here.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the big things. That's a pretty big change to the lighting that would cause this piece to spontaneously look and feel very different, right? If we were to like blot out a lot of this highlight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That already looks better.
Okay. Yeah, there is an inclination to treat everything kind of like it's embossed, right? Like we see, if there's a shoulder is round, so there's a highlight over here. And then the body is round, so there's like a highlight over here. And the head is round, so we're like, the highlight's over here. But it's like, that's actually not entirely true. And it always catches me off guard when I'm looking at a reference and I'm like, it looks photorealistic, and yet why is that whole side of them dark? Because there's a lot of ways in which our intuition understands that something looks a certain way, but academically, like intellectually, we're just not getting it. And then when you have that struggle, you end up at this place where you're like, it looks fucked up, but I don't know what to do. And it sucks. Feels bad. Yeah. When you have that, the answer is always something big needs to change. Like an entire area of the painting needs to come a lot darker or a lot lighter or something. Something huge needs to change in order to start to alleviate that feeling. Because the desires to want to say like, oh, I should render it more. I should work out more details. I should like maybe the eyes a little bit too far to the left. And so we like pick around all the corners. And then at some point, hopefully our brain snaps at us and goes like, no, we need to make a big change. And so the sooner you can kind of act on that inkling feeling, hey, a big change needs to happen, like the faster you just get to it. But it's tough. It's like you need to be listening to that mental chatter a little bit, those like that intuition, and just allowing it to be kind of noisy and dissatisfied, and allow yourself to be open to that feeling of, hey, something's wrong in this. I need to make changes like immediately. Because the sooner you do it, the sooner you make those big changes, the faster the whole thing goes. And you spent 2.5 hours on this? That's pretty normal.
Yeah, I didn't want to spend too much time. I'm trying to quicken the pace.
Sure. And you know what? Honestly, for you, because I know you a little bit at this point, I really I like to see you continue to like learn as a painter, but I'm also really curious about what you would have done with this assignment in a style more like the successes you've had recently with this kind of paper cutout look. Like,
Oh yeah.
what would happen if you were to try to also, apply the different lighting to this, to this photo, but also stylize it in the way that's been really successful for you? Like, so I'm left with that question as somebody who like has seen where you've struggled and where you've succeeded recently. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. I could play around with that in the upcoming assignments.
Lex is saying 2.5 hours is crazy to me. Well done. This is one of those things where someone's like, oh, 2.5 hours, that's crazy. I'm like, you need to elaborate. Is that a lot of time or a little time? It sounds like he's saying it's very little time to have gotten this far with the painting. Because it's really relative. I've always thought I was a super slow painter, and some people will tell me I'm blazingly fast. It's very little time. It's very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I come from a world of people saying 20 minutes no ref on some sort of like fucking masterpiece. And so to say you spent 2.5 hours on a study feels like you're admitting that you're like bad at art, but it's like,
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm trying to do.
but then you
2.5 hours.
you post that, oh, I spent 2.5 hours on this, and people are like, oh my God, you were able to do that in 2.5 hours? That's crazy. And it's, it's like I've known people that I've had students who are worried that they're going to overwork their pieces if they spend more than 5 or 6 hours on them. And then I know artists that feel guilty because they only spent 100 hours on a painting. Time in art is such a wildly relative term. I think around 2 hours is a really good amount of time for a study, and it seems like it's been like a good comfort pocket for you. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't try to push that a lot. I don't think that the whatever struggles you've had with painting, I don't think they're going to be solved by dumping 10 times as much time into a single painting. I think that a lot of the things that you are still struggling with come from so like this is like sort of a broad base of like being able to visualize how it is in 3D in this form is still eluding you a little bit. And then there's something about the mark making, like the mark making on this shoulder. There's something about either the brush you're using, like the way you are interfacing with this brush is like feels like a dysfunctional relationship. Like I think you need to experiment. I think you need to date around when it comes to your brushes. I think you need to have an open relationship with your brush pack.
Yeah.
Because I've seen you like, I've seen your mark making as a painter for a bit, and like sometimes, you have successes, sometimes not so much. But it's like I see this like very hashy, it's like I feel a sense of like struggle and anxiety and frustration coming through the mark making. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, painting's pretty fun. Like it could maybe if you're not feeling that, like it might be just like an issue with the way that you're applying the marks rather than like, like something with your tools, not with like your mindset. It's not you, it's the tools. It might be.
Okay.
And so that's why I'm saying, maybe open up that relationship a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, great. Any questions for me? I keep forgetting to ask that today.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good one. And then Amanda, you posted the lowest resolution image I think I've ever had on the show so far, on this class so far. But
my bad.
It's okay. Normally I scale the comments down, and I was like, uh-oh. That's you found the homework this week ridiculously hard. Yeah. You've been doing a lot of studies and study work recently. So I know you've been putting yourself up against a lot of challenges. And so for you to label this as ridiculously hard was part of the reason why I was like, I think this one's ridiculously hard.
Yeah, it was easily the hardest out of like anything you've given us, but I also appreciate that because it's room to grow and also notice your own weaknesses.
Yeah, notice your own weaknesses, but okay. So the feedback I've given to people so far is like, hey, welcome the gray. I think you've done that. That thing I pointed out about the lighting to Delia, you're not having an issue with that at all. You've really noticed that like a white shirt under orange light and skin under orange light, when the lighting color takes over this much, the local colors really fall away. And that's something I think that you really captured here, which gives it a very different sense of light and space than a lot of the other submissions this week. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you are saying that you're identifying weaknesses, but you're also hitting a lot of key successes here. So, like, to you, what do you feel like is the weaknesses in this piece?
I didn't capture the likeness as much as I would have liked, but
yeah.
I mean, I think everyone is having that general complaint as well. And the last maybe hour before I handed it in, which was like 3 hours ago or so, I was just like, my colors were kind of muddy, and I was trying to make them feel a little bit more vibrant, but keep them soft. And maybe I've just been staring at this for way too long as well.
Yeah, the likeness thing is tough. Like, personally, I've always struggled with likeness, and this whole conversation has made me wonder if perhaps the reason why I struggle with likeness is not for the reasons that I think I do, because it's like, if we just were to, the main reference for this, let me scroll up and pull this in. It's like, it's not hard to figure out where like the eyes, the nose, and the mouth are, right? Like if we want to boil this down into a drawing and just trace over it to create a kind of drawing out of it, it's not that tough to construct a pretty clear picture on what the structure of the face is. And yet the likeness is still a challenge because we're needing to see beyond just the linear breakdown of the face. We need to see it in more three-dimensional terms. And to get the likeness correct when the lighting's at a different angle, it's interesting. I don't know if you've seen, I mean, the classic is like somebody sticks their, like a flashlight under their nose to make themselves look like a monster for like telling a ghost story or whatever. Like people's likenesses change quite a bit depending on lighting direction. So I wonder if maybe it's part of this isn't everybody's difficulty with doing it, but also like that there's something transformational about the color, the direction of the light that's causing it to feel like she has a different personality or a different shaped face when the lighting is coming in from a different direction.
That's a good point.
Because I don't think I'm looking at this looking for places where you made mistakes on the likeness. I wish I had tried to do this assignment myself, considering how much of an experience it was for everyone. I feel like maybe I should try that this week. I'm looking at like, I think the biggest deviations for me, I'm seeing in like maybe the mouth, that it's like coming in a slightly different angle, and there's like a little bit less of seeing like the folds in the corner. But yeah, it's like I would have to poke at this for 3 hours myself, because trying to spot check it just as a 3D model is really tough. Did you end up using like any kind of cheat, like painting an orb or building a 3D
orb out?
Did you do the 3D? Did you try out a 3D model? I didn't suggest that, but
there's a 3D model like on ArtStation. It was just like general like planes of a female face. I was kind of trying that out, but it made things worse, and so I just kind of scrapped that. But I did the orb that you were showing.
Yeah, did it help?
A little bit, I think so.
Okay, that's good. And thank you for being kind. Okay, yeah. I am, as soon as I try to apply a paintbrush to the canvas a little bit and think about this for myself, I'm immediately like, I'm just like trying to nitpick everything. I'm like, okay, well maybe the chin needs to actually soften in a little bit. Like maybe there wouldn't be quite so much line there. It'd be, but it's like I can almost not speak while trying to do this, because it goes from normally when I'm rendering something, I can just chit chat and render and paint like crazy because it doesn't take up my whole brain. So I've got like bonus brain power to just hang out and chit chat. This is like challenging my ability to talk, which is proof that it's like doing something that goes above and beyond what is normally difficult in painting. I'm losing my words trying to think about how to help with this likeness. I don't know. I'm wondering if like maybe some shadow of the hair is kind of eking in like this a little bit, and that would like, she's got very round cheeks. Maybe that rounds the cheeks out a little bit by bringing a little bit more of that shadow in underneath the eye. I think that maybe bringing the corner of the mouth out a little bit helps with this. I wonder if this area, this curve here, it can't all be getting lit, can it?
That's what I was wondering.
But if it's
I'm like, go ahead.
If it's not being lit, then which part of it's in shadow?
Exactly.
Shit. Is it? Would it just be the inverse? Would it be wherever the highlight is on the other one? It's like shadowed up here. Jeez, this is really stretching my brain. These little folds over the lip, they look so pronounced in one way, but they're actually quite a bit softer. I think people give them credit. I wonder if she does have this red lipstick on. I wonder if darkening the redness on the lips a little bit helps. And then making sure if she's being lit from underneath that's the bottom lip that's getting all this shadow. And then does that mean that there needs to be a little bit of glossiness across the upper lip that's not getting there? It's tough.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and then the way that the light refracts inside the eye here, the iris being on like, the iris goes in a little bit on the eyeball, where it's like it goes in like this, and so when you shine a light on an eye, you get the highlight on top, but then the bottom part of the iris, the colored part tends to light up while it does the invert of what the eyeball does, which is always a little interesting. So you might actually end up with a little bit more light in the top of the eye and a little bit less light in the bottom if it's going to be lit from underneath. There's so many little counterintuitive moments in here. It's driving me crazy trying to help out with this. But that's why I'm doing it. Okay. All right. I got to stop. We're at an hour. Any questions about this? I just thought you'd done a great job, and I was interested in talking with you about your experience on it.
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to give an assignment that's way less hard than this. Thanks everyone who submitted this week. This is going to go down in the books as like, next time I want to boil someone's brain, I'm going to give them one of these. Here's the reference for this week. I pulled it off of the reference board that Dustin is always contributing to every single day. We've got a daily reference board on the Discord here. It's called Study Reference. I'm going to link to it right now. Dustin, the other admin here, he is always adding to this, and he's found some really great stuff. So I'm going to also upload to the homework thread really quick. So that we've got that. So, okay, I just want you to do it. I think this is Robert Pattinson, right? Is this Robert Pattinson? I just want you to do a study of Mr. Robert Pattinson here. The reason I picked this one is twofold. Number one, I was thinking about dynamic poses, and the other thing I was thinking about is dynamic cloth. Cloth is one of those things that we haven't really talked about a lot over the course of these classes. It's something that comes up constantly. I do a lot of character art. Drawing flowing cloth is something that I used to dread because it has its own set of rules, its own bit of life to it apart from a person. And as humans, we're very sensitive to when it's done right and when it's done wrong. And so as an artist, we end up having to learn it as its own kind of discrete set of rules apart from other stuff, because it's such a big part of our culture, of our society. We see cloth everywhere. We have such an intuitive idea of it. And yet when we go to learn how to draw and paint it, we are like strangers. It's it evades us. It feels like everything we paint, everything we draw is wrong. And so it requires this like study to go in and learn all the rules and figure out all of the stuff related to it. This cloth is doubly hard because it is translucent. There's light coming from behind the figure that's coming through the cloth. There's this really interesting effect that happens where some translucent materials will be more transparent at the angle when you're looking straight at it. And then as you get to a glancing angle, it becomes more opaque. And you can see that here where the bulge on the fabric becomes transparent and you can see the shadow of stuff behind it that's not showing through, and folds where it's like either folded on top of itself or back over itself is starting to get a bit darker. And so there's like a sense of layering to it beyond that. It's a confusing pose. It's got confusing lighting on the fabric, but you know what? No colors, no background, no tricks, just one difficult black and white image. All right. I hope that sounds good. Go ahead and submit to the homework channel. Once you are done, I'm gonna post a link to that. It's the Homework Pete channel. I'm going to pull some entries out of there for next week, and I'm going to look at them on Thursday. Feel free to RSVP over in the events tab if you want to get a reminder every single week about this class. Until then, be good. I'll see you guys around, all right? Bye-bye.